Have you ever wanted to tell someone your upcoming plans in Spanish, like, I'm going to the movies or I'm going to the beach? Well, stay tuned, because after today's episode, you'll know exactly how to talk about your future plans with confidence in beginner Spanish.
Welcome to Spanglish Friends, the podcast for true beginner Spanish learners.
Hola amigos, I'm Val, your experienced Spanish teacher and co-host from Venezuela.
And I'm Em, your Australian co-host who's been learning Spanish for 10 years.
We'll help you get confident listening and speaking beginner Spanish with content you can actually use in real-life conversations.
Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on socials at Spanglish_friends. Let's get started.
Comencemos.
Bienvenidos de nuevo, Spanglish friends. Welcome back.
Muy buen día. Today in episode 31, episodio 31, we are learning how to talk about your plans in Spanish using one of the most useful little phrases ever, ir a plus verbo.
That's right. By the end of this episode, friends, you'll be able to say things like, I'm going to the beach next week, or you're going to dance tonight. Super practical stuff today to talk about your future plans in Español.
And as always, we've got tres preguntas del día, or three guiding questions of the day. Número uno, ¿cómo digo I'm going to en español usando ir a más verbo? How do I say I'm going to in Spanish? Número dos, ¿cómo lo conjugo con yo, tú, él, ella? How do I conjugate it with I, you, he, and she? En número tres, ¿cómo pregunto qué va a hacer alguien este fin de semana? How do I ask someone what they are going to do this weekend?
Love it, Profe Val. And to help you bring everything to life, we're starting, as always, with our conversación pequeña, our little mini conversation.
Exactamente. Remember, here, amigos, the key is to listen out for at least 3 words you already know. You'll be surprised how much your Spanish ear is improving. Then we'll break it all down together afterwards.
That's right. So let's set the scene for today's conversation. Val's going to ask me about my weekend plans.
¿Lista, mi querida Emi?
Sí, mi beste Val. Vamos, comencemos.
Hola, ¿qué tal te va?
Val, todo muy bien.
Emi, ¿qué vas a hacer este fin de semana?
Este fin de semana voy a visitar a mis amigos. Mi amigo va a preparar un almuerzo para todos. ¿Y tú qué vas a hacer?
Este fin de semana voy a ir al cine con mi hermana. Ella va a ver su película favorita. Está muy emocionada.
¡Qué divertido! Yo también voy a ver una película el domingo por la tarde, pero antes voy a ir a Pilates.
Amigos, repeat after us. Voy a ir. Vas a hacer. Va a ver. These are the key phrases we are focusing on today to talk about what you or someone else is going to do.
That's right. In just 10 minutes, friends, you're going to know everything that you need to talk confidently about your future plans en español. So let's get started with pregunta número uno. How do I say I'm going to do something in Spanish?
Super simple, we use ir a plus verbo.
All right, let's break this down. The verb ir, spelt IR, means to go, but it's an irregular verb, which means it doesn't follow the regular AR, ER, or IR patterns like the verbs we've seen in previous episodes.
Right. Regular verbs, normally like comer, to eat, have a nice predictable patterns. For example, if I want to say I eat, from comer would be yo como. Can you see it's still very similar? And if I want to say you eat, tú comes, he eats, él come. Easy, right?
Yes, but ir, she likes to be special, okay? She does her own thing.
Totally. And we need to know her irregular forms, because ir a plus verbo is how we are going to talk about what we are going to do in Spanish, actually.
Yes, so here's the magic structure, friends. Conjugate ir for the person that you want to talk about. Add the word a, and then add the verb of the action you're going to do in the future. You need to include this verb at the end in its infinitive form. That is its full form. So ending in AR, ER, or IR, like hablar, that's the infinitive of the verb to talk, the AR verb.
Let's bring that to life. For example, voy a estudiar means I'm going to study. Voy is the irregular form of I go, then we add a, which is the preposition like to, going to this place, and our action verb, estudiar, to study.
That's right. So voy is that irregular conjugation of I go. Another example using voy a comer. Can you guess what this means? It means I'm going to eat. Comer, the verb to eat, we're keeping it in its full infinitive form ending in er. Voy a comer.
This sentence structure, ir a plus verbo, actually has a fancy name, verbal periphrasis.
Ooh, big grammar word alert.
Yes. In Spanish is perífrasis verbales, but don't worry, it sounds scarier than it is. It just means that two verbs are working together to express an idea. So for example, if I say voy a comer means I'm going to eat, you've got one verb conjugated, voy, and one in its full infinitive form, comer. And these two verbs together express one intention, that is to eat.
Yes, you're going to eat. Perfect little grammar note there, Val. So basically, friends, key thing to remember is if one verb is conjugated, the other one usually stays in its full form within that same sentence. Nice. Moving on to our pregunta número dos. Now that we know how to say I'm going to do something, voy a, what about Profe Val if you wanted to say you're going to, you are going to, or he or she is going to do something?
Here are the forms you need. Yo voy a. This means I'm going to. Yo voy a. Tú vas a means you are going to. Tú vas a. Él va a means he is going to. Él va a. And ella va a means she is going to. Ella va a.
Nice. So we have the irregular conjugations of the verb ir with voy, vas, and va that we're learning today. So let's use them in real examples. Yo voy a cocinar pasta. I am going to. Yo voy a cocinar, which is the verb in its infinitive form to cook, and then pasta. Another example. Tú vas a leer un libro. Tú vas a leer un libro. You are going to. Tú vas a leer, the verb in its infinitive form meaning to read, un libro, a book. Another example, ella va a trabajar mañana. She is going to. Ella va a trabajar, the verb to work in its infinitive form, and then a marker of time, mañana, tomorrow.
Those are great examples, Amy. Thank you. And amigos, notice that we keep the second verb as Em mentioned in its infinitive form. We don't change. That part never changes. Cocinar, to cook. Leer, to read. Trabajar, to work. They never change.
Exactamente. And you can use this structure of ir a plus verbo to describe all sorts of future plans, like what you're going to do tonight, this weekend, or next month in Espanol.
Let's combine it with what we've learned about the time expressions in our podcast to date. For example, let's say, voy a viajar a México el mes que viene. Breaking this sentence down, voy a viajar, I'm going to travel. Travel is the verb viajar a México, to Mexico, next month. El mes que viene, I wish.
Me too.
Or voy a ver una película esta noche. I'm going to watch. Voy a ver. Ver is the verb to watch. Una película, a movie, esta noche. Tonight.
Nice. And this structure is so super common. Spanish native speakers use it all the time to talk about their plans in the near future. And this brings us to our final question of the day, pregunta número tres. How do you ask someone what they're going to do this weekend in español?
Muy fácil. Super easy. You can ask, ¿qué vas a hacer este fin de semana? What are you going to do this weekend?
Breaking this sentence down, ¿qué means what? Vas, we know now, is the irregular conjugation of you go from the verb ir. What are you going to? hacer means to do, and then este fin de semana, this weekend. ¿Qué vas a hacer este fin de semana?
Then you could answer with, for example, este fin de semana voy a visitar a mis amigos. This weekend, este fin de semana voy a visitar, I'm going to visit a mis amigos, my friends.
And if you want to ask the other person in return what they're doing on the weekend, just say, ¿y tú? ¿Y tú? ¿Qué vas a hacer? And you, what are you going to do?
Perfect way to keep the conversation going natural, simple, and totally beginner friendly.
Nice, nice, nice. Now that we've covered the key concepts we need for today, friends, let's revisit our mini conversation and break down everything we said line by line so it becomes crystal clear what we spoke about.
Vamos allá. Entonces, first, I opened with ¿Qué tal te va? ¿Qué tal te va? Is a question, and it's very friendly and informal way to say or to ask, how is it going?
And I replied, todo muy bien. It's all good, easy and positive.
Then I asked her, ¿Qué vas a hacer este fin de semana? What are you going to do this weekend, este fin de semana? And tú vas a hacer, remember, is you are going to do.
Nice. And I replied with, este fin de semana, this weekend, voy a visitar, I'm going to visit a mis amigos, my friends. Then I added, mi amigo va a preparar un almuerzo para todos. My friend, mi amigo, va a preparar, he is going to preparar un almuerzo, a lunch para todos, for everyone. Finally, I asked in return to Val, ¿y tú? ¿Qué vas a hacer? I asked Val, and you? What are you going to do this weekend?
And I answered with, este fin de semana voy a ir al cine con mi hermana. Este fin de semana, this weekend, voy a ir al cine. I'm going to go, basically, voy a ir. Ir is the verb to go. Al cine, to the cinema, con mi hermana, with my sister. Then I added, ella va a ver su película favorita. She is going to watch, ella va a ver su película favorita, her favorite movie, and está muy emocionada. She is very excited, emocionada.
I finished the conversation with qué divertido, which is an expression meaning how fun. I added yo también, I also voy a ver, am going to watch una película, a movie, el domingo por la tarde. I added that time marker of Sunday in the afternoon. Domingo por la tarde. Pero antes, finishing my sentence, I said, but beforehand, pero antes, voy a ir, I am going to go a Pilates, to Pilates.
Nice. Now you have all the ingredients to understand our conversation. Felicitaciones, amigos. You did it.
Woo to the who! Congratulations, friends. Now you know how to talk about future plans and ask others about their plans in Spanish.
Which means it's time for our Spanglish friends shoutout of the week.
Woohoo! And this week's shout out goes to Cruz, who commented on TikTok when we asked you to tell us what time of the day it was when you were listening to our episode 29, episodio 29. They wrote 8:18. They were listening at 8:18. Perfect structure. Well done.
Me encanta. Love it. Muchísimas gracias, Cruz, por apoyarnos.
And amigos, if you want to shout out in an upcoming episode, participate right now in our reto de la semana.
That's our challenge of the week, nuestro reto.
Sí. And this week's reto is to write one sentence in the comments using the structure of ir a más verbo, plus a time expression like mañana, meaning tomorrow, este fin de semana, this weekend, or la semana que viene, next week.
For example, amigos, you could say, voy a estudiar español mañana. I'm going to study Spanish tomorrow. Simple, clear, and perfect for practice.
Post your answers right now in the comments so we can have a look at it and keep that new grammar fresh, cemented in your mind.
We'll be checking your answers this week, so be quick to post yours.
Sí. Okay, amigos, time to recap our 3 big takeaways from today's episode. Grab a pen to note down these 3 things that you have successfully learnt today. Over to you, Profe Val.
Vamos. Número 1. You learned today how to say I'm going to in Spanish using ir a plus verbo. Example, voy a comer. I'm going to eat. Número 2. You learn how to conjugate the irregular verb ir. Yo voy a, I'm going to, tú vas a, you are going to, él va a, he is going to, and ella va a, she is going to. Our last one, número 3. You learn how to ask someone what they are going to do on the weekend with this question. ¿Qué vas a hacer este fin de semana? ¿Qué vas a hacer este fin de semana? What are you going to do this weekend? And how to ask in return. ¿Y tú? ¿Qué vas a hacer? And you? What are you going to do?
Amazing job, friends. Seriously, you're building your Spanish conversation skills one step at a time, paso a paso.
Woohoo! And quick spoiler alert. Next week, in episode 32, episodio 32, we'll keep practicing ir a plus verbo because we know it's very new topic for all of us with the new everyday examples so you can use it in real life conversations.
That's right. We can't wait. So until then, keep practicing and repeating what we've learnt using voy a in your daily interactions, and we'll help you next week make your sentences sound even more natural en español.
And that's all for today, amiga. Thanks for listening. We hope you loved this episode as much as we loved making it.
Sí, buen trabajo, amigos. Catch you all next time.
Nos vemos en el próximo episodio. Chao, chao.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Spanglish, friends. We're both so proud of the time you're investing to level up your Spanish skills.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, follow us, leave a rating, or tell a friend about the show. It helps our awesome community grow.
Join fellow beginner Spanish learners by following us on Instagram and TikTok at Spanglish_friends.
Congratulations on taking another step in your Spanish learning journey.
Hasta la próxima, amigos.